So that is bout card 1 of the next event, which is the Women's Senior Master Fours. That's Cambridge Boat Club in bout card 1. And they won in 2019, which earned them bow 1. And East Arm with bow 2, they finished second to them in 2019. So both crews are back after a couple of year hiatus. So
that's Linda Murray there in 3-seat. Recognizable little pigtails that she carries. Well known from the referee community, well known in the rowing community, well known in the coaching community. Actually just finished up coaching, teaching some actors how to row for a movie that's coming out here shortly. Heart of the Champion, I believe it's called, something like that. So keep an eye out for that one. Linda had a hand in that one, well known in this local Boston community as well.
So your shot is of the Weeks Footbridge, and you're watching some of the crews in this Women's Senior Masters Fours event. Again, that is average boat age of 50 or older, come through that Weeks turn to the port side. Really a tight turn there by that white shell that just came through. I can't get a bow card on them, but really nice tight turn around that bridge as we start to see it fill up with spectators. And like I said earlier in the commentary, you're going to hear some spectators because we have a couple microphones out there, and you can kind of hear a cheer ambient behind or anytime that we stop talking.
I was about to remark that there weren't any other boats. It was just probably first and second. The first two leaders from this particular event were kind of out there. They put some distance between them and the rest of the field until potentially number 3 came around that corner. We'll find out once we get a new angle here. But this goes back to one of your favorite views. You got all these boats in the picture. You can see some of the different courses that coxswains are taking on purpose, on accident, not completely sure from this angle. Either way, need to be making that port turn and to get ready for that bridge that they're going to come through in this no man's land kind of area of race.
So that's Stay Classy is the name of that boat from San Diego Rowing Club. San Diego, I don't know.
San Diego.
As they come through the Weeks Footbridge and they take that turn, does San Diego. I think you were exactly right, Lindsay. I think those two boats were sort of out in front, the first and second place finishers, and then there was a considerable gap back to bout card 3, as we saw just now 7 going through the Weeks Footbridge. And again, this is the shot from the Elliott Bridge, which is the bridge after the Weeks Footbridge on our race course. And that coxswain doing a great job of just sort of gradually making her way over to the apex of the big turn.
This is a great shot to also see the trail of the boat itself. You can see the track that the boat is making, which also gives you feedback on the coxswain's steering, and not just the coxswain's steering. The coxswain's steering is, what's the word? It's slave to the rowing of the rowers. If the rowers are together and clean, then that makes the steering much easier. If the rowers are not together and clean, it makes it much more challenging from a coxswain standpoint.
Well, you're looking out for all the coxswains who are going to be on video this weekend with that shot, Lindsay, by acknowledging that it's not simply the coxswain that is making that straight or not straight line.
I always say the best coxswains should go with your most novice crews and vice versa, because you can learn so much from there. A truly great coxswain can really shine when they get with less experienced athletes. They can bring them together.
But does that coxswain want to go with the less experienced athletes?
Well, maybe for practice reasons, you know. And then, of course, when it comes to race day, everybody that's the cream rises and you put them all together. But for practice reasons, training reasons, potentially racing reasons, potentially testing who actually is the better coxswain reasons, always helpful. Back with San Diego Rowing Club.
Rowing about 30 strokes a minute is San Diego Rowing Club down this head of the Charles race course. And coming into the picture there is bow 13, which is Minneapolis, and bow 15, which is Hudson River Rowing, just behind them.
Yeah, possibly Hudson River having taken a slightly straighter course on that, maybe made up some ground. Again, you could be the faster crew, but if your line is longer, it's going to take you longer to get down the course. Something I'm glad that you brought up, the stroke rate there, specifically about 30, usually down a head race, because it is so much longer, your stroke rate will be slightly lower than it would be for a much shorter race. You might even start with a strategy where you go, for this portion of the race, we're going to be at this rate, and then increase your rate as you come down the course. That helps with pacing. For long races, you do pace. Sprinters don't necessarily know what pace means. And when I say sprinters, I mean if you're running the 100 or something like that. Rowers, if you row at 2K, 4K, 6K, 30-minute, you know the word pacing. You know what that means.
That is Sammamish. I just love saying Sammamish. That's Sammamish out of the Seattle, Washington area. My good friend Liza Dixon coaches, and they are approaching the Anderson Bridge in that famed stretch in between Weeks and Anderson, where a lot of the spectators will be this weekend, Lindsay, and are already, as you can kind of hear them in the ambient noise in the background. This is our 2021 Head of the Charles coverage, and this is the Women's Senior Masters Fours category, event 22 that's on the race course, as you watch Sammamish navigate this race course in their Women's Senior Master 4.
Average age 50 and up. This particular boat, 54 is their age average.
And that Sammamish boat is approaching the bridge that they will go under and then be in this shot, which again is this overhead shot where we're watching these fours row away from the Anderson Bridge in really what is one of the longest stretches of straight water that they will find, or should be straight water, on this 4,702 meter race course. As you see the course happening for this boat, Cambridge Boat Club, and as they are coming around these buoys, and you can see they're just hugging them very, very close and right where you want it to be. So it's not it's not under the rigger, it's where the most room is, and you're keeping the blades off of those buoys so that they don't affect any of the strokes taken by these women.
This entry out of Cambridge Boat Club, Cambridge has the course record for this particular event, set back in 2017 at just under 19 minutes. That's 45.4. They row here. A lot of them coach here. They've seen this race course from a lot of different angles, but I can say these buoys don't stay out here all the time. These, 350 or so buoys that are placed every 20 to 30 meters down this race course, that's not in all year round. So they don't necessarily get to practice on a buoyed Charles course, even if they do get to practice here in general. And as we've mentioned, if you're here to practice, you don't really get a full practice because there are so many boats out on the water trying to practice over the course of the weekend, leading into the Head of the Charles once the course is in place.
So Cambridge Boat Club, bow number 1, your defending champion from 2019. The last installment of the Head of the Charles Regatta. Their boat is called the 1974 National Champions. Looks like a Boston University shell. It's in red, and very nice through the water is this 4. And the power is being put onto the blades primarily with the legs and the back. And they're in their final stretch. And the coxswain is probably saying something like, look, we're into our final 400 meters, so you know what that means, and I want you to make that boat behind you look smaller and smaller and smaller.
That's about the one thing, is that perspective of, do they look smaller? Even if by an inch, it's motivating. If you're out there, number 1, there's no one behind you, no one to catch up to, but you can continue to push them away, and that is something that you definitely pay attention to from a rowing standpoint. It's all you can see.
So the pink jerseys, that is Alexandria Community Rowing out of Alexandria, Virginia, and they were ahead of Sammamish, which was bow 3. So obviously having a nice race, having passed a couple of boats, or at least a boat there in bow 3 as they come through Elliott, does Alexandria Community Rowing. And particularly, so under the bridges, Lindsay, for anybody who hasn't been under a bridge, and particularly in a coxed race, it can get very loud under those bridges. There's not a lot of space, and there's quite an echo. And if you got a couple of coxswains kind of, yelling or certainly giving their commands over speakers that are projecting up into that bridge, it can be kind of a crazy echo chamber.
It's a beautiful sound though when it's silent, when there are no voices, just the sounds of the boat. If you're not passing, if you're not, in a position that you need to be giving your crew feedback at that point, being quiet through the bridge is also a really nice experience, because then you get to hear a little more about, like, are we moving together? It just changes the pace up a little.
So that is your Cambridge Boat Club bow number 1 of this Women's Senior Masters Fours event. And they are taking their final strokes across the line in that red Boston University equipment. And finishing very, very strong there, it looked like, taking the stroke rating up in the last couple hundred meters. Probably from the previous picture, I could tell that their stroke rating was up a little bit. So here's another situation where we're seeing, it looks like a boat from the previous event and a boat from the next event in the same shot. That shot from the Weeks footbridge down the powerhouse stretch. It looks like you've got bow number 17 from one event, which is probably Greater Lawrence rowing, and then bow number 2 from the following event, which is North Suburban Crew of Skokie, Illinois, in the same picture as they approach Weeks.
That's all right. I'm getting some great footage and I'm just happy about myself. I expect to see this on Instagram.
Somebody out there expects to see this on Instagram. Picking up some of the ambient noise there. The Nats out on the course. More people are out there having conversations, watching rowing.
And that's the end of the big turn. And so you're seeing the boats, what is that, bow number 17? No, 12.
I believe it is, yep.
So it's kind of the looks like another Sammamish boat maybe. To my eye, at least from the uniform, it is
Yes.
Sammamish. Finishing up that big turn, and you're seeing these 8s. That's actually kind of a pinch point in terms of it being narrow, where the race course is most of the river there, and the warm-up side, or the side to take you up to the race course, is much more narrow. So you've got a lot of officials there letting those 8s know that they've got to stop and yield to the traffic that's coming around the turn, especially if those coxswains really want to be hanging the blades, for instance, over the buoys.
Yeah, and knowing the 8s that are going up, the ones that you're seeing in the picture for those of you that are watching, those are the alumni 8s that are about to come up. So there's a lot of rivalry that's going to happen on the water. So there will be pinch points happening. There will be boats backing up. So expect to see that as we continue to watch the footage of these 4s come down the course at that particular angle.
So that's Sammamish coming through. And a couple more boats coming across, coming around the turn. It's bow 19 and
like
bow 15.
Willamette having a nice course there, having passed Hudson County, Hudson River rowing. They have obviously passed 4 crews on their way, 3 crews to catch up with these guys, but also to take that line through the bridge. So they're having a good row. You can see how the hull is moving versus the other one, regardless of the bow cart that they have. But also the fact that they have the 19, that it's past number 15, that they know that they are moving well.
So the green, that is bow 13, which is Minneapolis.
I love this. They're fans of both competition and baked goods.
So am I.
They have all sorts of jokes about the Great British Bake Off here, and I thought I've watched that show myself. I love it. I think it's hysterical, but I don't know all the inside jokes. But I love it. They love competition and baked goods. You combine those things, you get.
And apparently British humor as
Yeah.
well.
True, yeah.
That's bow 16 coming through past
Marin.
Cambridge Boathouse, which is Marin. So you're seeing a lot of the same names coming through in these Masters events. Again, you're seeing these programs that are just very large programs that have boats from the youth, sometimes middle school level, all the way up to Grandmaster and veteran boats at all of these big clubs that exist all over America for rowing.
Particularly since the head of the Charles is, like we mentioned, that big reunion for the fall. There are so many elements here combined at one incredible event. It's been here since 1965. That almost didn't make it past their first year for various reasons. Some great history that I'm sure that David and Colleen will continue to share throughout the weekend. But this event is something that people are drawn to for many, many reasons, which is why you see a lot of entries. But again, you have to earn those entries. They're not given, they're not handed out. You have to earn them.
And the regatta starting as basically a way to compete in the fall and break up the monotony of fall training, which especially in a place like Boston can become, hey, we're indoors again. Oh, we're on the erg again.
Yeah.
Oh, see you in the weight room tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
So that's why the Head of the Charles was founded, and it was meant to just be a couple of hours one afternoon, and whoever wanted to show up and race, come and race. But it was also an all-male regatta, and now we are 50-50 in terms of gender split, which is not only great, but it's the way that it probably should have been from day one.
More
But
than 11,000 people competing here, and we go half and half. So it's a great growth over the last almost 60 years of racing this event. Having started with 12 events, now we're at 61. Having started with 80 boats, we're now I think over 2,500 boats, which is why they went from one day of competition to 2 days of competition to now 3 days of competition. I can't imagine they'll turn it into a week-long event, but it's just a great thing to see grow over the years and continue to stay strong and interesting over the years. Hence, here we are, YouTube.
Well, I'm sure that the Regatta committee really had to use as much goodwill as they possibly had with the local authorities to get it even to include Friday yesterday, which was amazing.
Shutting down Boston is no easy feat. It's a rowing community, though. It's all behind. Fully supports the event. Back to one of your favorite views here from a coxing standpoint. It's great not to have the time card in there. You can see coming off of that turn, this is a view I don't get to see. I'm not turning around and looking behind me from a racing standpoint. I'm just thinking, what did I get myself into? No, I'm thinking, push, here we go. I don't know where we are, but I'm going and I'm listening and I'm following. But this can help coxswains that want to learn, can help people that want to learn how to do this. Keep an eye on these camera angles. Learn where they are along the course and go, maybe I should have done that. Pick out a line that you like and screenshot it, or remember it. Draw it in your mind's eye so that you know what might come up the next time you have the opportunity to get out on this race course.
Well, that's exactly what I tried to do. The first time I ever got on any race course is try to visualize where things are, pick out points on land that make sense. Also, one of the things that coxswains often try to do is when they come through one of these bridges, it may not be like the next bridge that they are aiming for. It may be a building. It may be something that's on the shore. It may be a tree. It may be
the spire.
Maybe a light pole. And those are the types of things that go into trying to figure out how to steer a course like this and how to navigate it and do it to the best of your ability. And if you're a coxswain, really your goal, as we say, this is really a coxswain's race. To a large extent it is, but your goal is to go from the start line to the finish line and have your rowers take as few strokes as possible.
A great shot here with all of these boats. There's definitely a pileup starting to happen. More races unfolded, so there's more opportunity for boats to take ground on one another. Bow 33, that's New Haven Rowing Club out of Oxford, Connecticut. They've overtaken a few crews. Bow 30 is East Bay out of Rhode Island, Barrington, Rhode Island. 29 in your picture, Riverside local. They're all starting to pile up there as we come down to the last 700 meters. On the right side of the picture, you see some crews warming down, cooling down after having already raced their men's fours. And then all the boats, again, are supposed to start the race with about 10 seconds in between one another. Every 3-ish seconds or so is a boat length. So imagine what that might look like in the picture. All of these crews have changed that margin from the beginning of the actual race. Unfortunately, with the silhouette, we can't see the bow number of that right there as they come across around this final turn toward the final straight stretch.
I think it was Greenwich crew, if I had to guess, based upon the colors.
The bright green.
But yeah, that was a great shot of several boats just kind of coming through in succession.
Probably
and
30,
certainly,
31, 32.
Yeah, certainly I would say coming through with less distance between them than they probably started with.
And this looks like Pelham County, just outside of New York City, New Rochelle, New York, crossing the finish line.
And you can see just in the right side of the shot, just want to point out, that's one of the launching docks. And most of the boats that are out here at the head of the Charles Regatta that come from somewhere else, that is their launch point, meaning that's where they put the boat in the water and start rowing, and where their boat is located on land for this regatta. So most people are dropping in there, and they're having to row all the way down the race course the opposite way to get to the start line to even start their race. And as you see, Val 17 coming through and finishing the big turn, Greater Lawrence rowing. And that looked like bow card 6, which maybe is from the next race, the Grandmaster 4's Watercat Rowing Club.
Watercat, if that is bow 6, it says they've been racing the head of the Charles for the past 2 decades. Good luck to everyone out there. It's a joy for them to be here. The people out here just near and dear their old friends, enjoying the sport they love.
And enjoying an event that they love. And that's really what this is. We've talked about it so many times. The Head of the Charles being an event, and really the premier sort of reunion event because of how many athletes, how many boats are going to go down this race course all weekend long.
Looks like Watercat's having a great row if they've already passed Narragansett, who was it says was a repeat lineup from 2019. So the winners of the 2019 of this particular event in 2019 have already been passed by Watercat, who started in the 6th position. They were the 6th women's Grandmaster 4. That's the 60 and over fours category, and now they've already overtaken boat number 1. So they've overtaken 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 to be where they are, and technically 17 from the previous.
Right. And that's not common.
That's not common.
To pass that many boats, even over 3 miles, is very uncommon. As you see bow 32 coming through, that's Rock Creek Rowing out of Washington, D.C. They row on the Potomac River.
Crossing the finish line there, to be compared with a different point earlier in the race.